Let's let's talk edge rankings first. Traps, you have your top 5 edge players in this draft. Have we just eliminated I feel like everybody's on board with edge. I like it.
Yeah, this is one of draft Twitter's like greatest achievements, that for the longest time before I was at CBS, everyone in the draft Twitter sphere was just saying edge. Stop saying 3-4 outside linebacker, 4-3 defensive end. They all got to play on the edge. So yeah, I think everyone is like a general consensus now that it's just edge rushers. Like, are you guys cool with that? Because I'm definitely cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, for whatever it's worth, just on the circle back on Deebo Samuel, Ian Rappaport tweeted out, Rap Sheet tweeted out, the Jets, the Packers, the Chiefs, and the Lions.
Oh,
Lions are spicy.
32 overall?
Yeah, probably 32 overall and something else. 32 and 34 for Deebo.
There you go.
That might be too much. But if there's a bidding war, it could end up happening. Anyway, your top 5 edge players.
My top 5 edge players: Aiden Hutchinson at 1, Kayvon Thibodeaux at 2. I have a little bit of a curveball: Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State at 3, George Karlaftis, Josh Sky at 4, and Boye Mafe at 5. I think with Arnold Ebiketie being that surprise selection at 3, he's a little bit smaller. He's like 6'3", 250, but he gives you a lot of what Aiden Hutchinson does, just at a smaller size. He's got pass rushing moves, speed to power conversion, bend. He really checks all the boxes for me. I have a first-round grade actually on all of these edge rushers. Boye Mafe is my number 32 overall player in this draft class. Most notably, I'm way lower on Travon Walker. He's my buyer beware prospect, more so than anyone else in this draft class, and Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. And I think the Jermaine Johnson one has probably gotten me more heat than the Travon Walker one, because Jermaine Johnson had a really good season at Florida State. His highlight reel is fantastic. I just think he's a little stiff around the corner and is good in a face-up situation, but I don't know if he's bending the edge, winning with a variety of pass rushing moves. I like Travon Walker. I like Jermaine Johnson, but I think outside of my top 5 and into the second round is where I would feel a lot more comfortable drafting them than where they'll ultimately go.
So there's some really interesting stuff going on in the betting market as it relates to these edge guys, because Aiden Hutchinson, let's bring up old Caesars. Aiden Hutchinson's still the favorite to go first overall, but actually, I guess I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but I don't know if I'm technically reporting this, but like I have a pretty good source telling me that Travon Walker's going 1 to the Jaguars.
And it's not Pete Prisco, you said, right?
It's not. No. Pete Prisco's like, they're taking Evan Neal. Evan Neal or Hutchinson. You're crazy. I'm not reporting. I'd bet it. I would bet it if I were you guys, or anyone who wants to bet Travon Walker first overall. I would bet it now.
What are his odds now?
Let's see.
It's gotten pretty close.
Yeah, it's that's what I was going to say, is like it's really trimmed down. And then the other thing that's really interesting is that Kayvon Thibodeaux to go second overall has gotten absolutely steamed, which is wild, because if I'm right and Travon Walker goes 1, and can you imagine Aiden Hutchinson going 3? Like, is that plausible?
I really don't think so, because I had heard that Detroit wasn't as high on Thibodeaux as they are Hutchinson. That's kind of why it would be a little surprising to me. From a talent perspective.
Sorry, just to jump in here on the first overall pick, Aiden Hutchinson -160. That is the cheapest it's been in quite some time. And Travon Walker +140. The 2 tackles 14-1. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
From a talent perspective, I can totally understand that. I mean, I have Thibodeaux rated ahead of Hutchinson in this draft class, so I can absolutely understand why they might go in that direction at number 2.
Is your order Thibodeaux and then Hutch, Josh?
Yeah, it is. It's Thibodeaux. There's a little bit of a gap, then Hutchinson, Travon Walker, George Karlaftis kind of bunched together there.
So there's also this. Josh, I appreciate you fighting through. Like, you can tell you're like, please don't give out as I'm speaking. I've been there. Usually mine happens when I'm like coming back from a like weekend at like Vegas or Asheville or something like that. But anyway, I digress. The other sneaky thing about this number 1 overall pick that is not being talked about loudly enough is that I don't think that Trent Baalke is going to draft a Jim Harbaugh guy. Like, I think he hates him. Like, why would he give Jim Harbaugh the credit by drafting a Michigan player number 1 overall?
The hate goes that deep.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you think it's possible that, like, Jim Harbaugh is, potentially poisoning Hutchinson against Trent Baalke? You know what I mean? Like, that's not that crazy, right?
No, I don't think it is. I think those two, with what happened in San Francisco, how successful they were, and then Harbaugh is out, Baalke survived for a little bit longer. I think, that could certainly be a thing where neither of those two want Aiden Hutchinson to go number 1 overall, which if you're evaluating prospects, you probably don't want something like that factoring into your consideration. And it wouldn't even be crazy if right now the Jaguars don't even know what they're going to do. Like, they're going to not know until Thursday, April 28th.
There was, I think that there's I think it's entirely plausible that the Jaguars have not decided what they're going to do. And like, you got to remember too, when you're talking about these number 1 overall picks, it's not just as simple as Trent Baalke's like, all right, we're going to Trayvon Walker, and that's it. You have to run when it's the first round picks, you are running by the owner. Like, you have to go to the owner and say, here's what we're thinking. This is why it's going to work. I thought it was interesting that Lance Zierlein pointed out, and I think maybe I noted this with Wilson, but he was like, I'm telling you, he's like, I got some really good info on Trayvon Walker going 1 to the Jaguars. And then he's like, and then like a follow-up, he's like, and then I heard like 4 people saying the exact same thing that I was told, which is, it's like an Uno reverse smoke screen where suddenly you're not sure if what you're being told is actually the good info, and maybe it's them trying to prop up. Like, I don't know what the point of the Jaguars propping, like, why the smoke screening at 1 makes no sense, but then again, the Jaguars make no sense. So
it reminds me of when Dave Gettleman in 2018 was like, we are picking Saquon Barkley at 2. And everyone's like, yeah, right. They're going Sam Darnold, Josh Allen. And then the next year, we love Daniel Jones. We're going to pick him at 6. And everyone's like, no way, you're not picking Daniel Jones at 6. And Dave Gettleman like did that reverse psychology where he was like, I'm picking these players that I told you I was going to pick the whole time. No one believed me. Not the best decisions for Dave Gettleman, those 2 selections. And this could be the same with Trayvon Walker at 1.
Yeah. The other thing about Trayvon Walker, and you see Devo's got it up on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6, he has the fastest 40-yard dash by a player 270 pounds or more at the combine since 2000. And the other guys, right behind him, he had 4.5 140, which is just ridiculous. Nick crazy. Perry 4.55, Ziggy Ansah 4.56, Adalius Thomas 4.56, and Rashawn Gary 4.58. Like, I don't know that you would definitely say that all of those guys have been elite in their careers, but all those guys have been pretty productive. And the thing that you hear from Trent Baalke is it just comes back to that Alden Smith comp, and he took Alden Smith over Cameron Jordan and JJ Watt. And like, at least until Alden Smith got in trouble off the field, it wasn't that terrible of a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually from that graphic, my comparison for Trayvon Walker is Ziggy Ansah. I think they're so similar. The combines are similar. Coming out of BYU, Ziggy Ansah was like, doesn't really know what he's doing on the field, but you just saw him go so high in the draft to the Lions, in the top 5 in that 2013 draft class, because the talent was through the roof. He didn't know how to use his hands. The pass rushing moves weren't there yet. That's how I feel about Trayvon Walker. And I think if you pick Ziggy Ansah at 1 overall, would the Jaguars be happy with that? Like you mentioned, like, he had a good career, but not amazing. I guess maybe I'm not the perfect person to kind of prop up Trayvon Walker at 1 because I'm so low on him. But I just feel like he's a Ziggy Ansah type, from his athleticism to just how he plays on the football field.
Well, and when you pop him, when you pop Trayvon Walker into mock draftable, if you do it at defensive end, Peyton Turner, Janarius Robinson, Ziggy Ansah the third, Preston Smith, Daniil Hunter, Joe Tryon, Emmanuel Ogbah, Jadeveon Clowney,
good players,
Gaines Adams, and Robert Quinn. That's the kind of comp, and Quinn is at like 69.3, so they're all pretty. That's the kind of comps you want. I know he wasn't super productive, but if it stands to reason that I don't see why why would you smoke screen at 1? It doesn't make any damn sense.
No,
it means you're just being a jerk if you're doing that. Any other thoughts on actually, sorry, yeah, we're supposed to most confident you're in on a player, Traps. Who's your if you're gonna you feel you're like this guy's gonna be a above average pro, or like maybe not elite, but just like I'm confident this guy will be good. Who is it?
It's Aiden Hutchinson. And I think part of your question would be part of my answer, that I don't know for sure. Like, I don't feel super duper confident that Aiden Hutchinson is going to be like the next Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa, but I feel very confident that he will be that 3-down defensive end. He'll be a 6 to 10 sack guy at the very least, most every season, 40 to 60 pressure, somewhere in that range. The pass rushing moves are too good. The strength is there. I think he actually bends around the corner pretty well. He's not the freaky explosive athlete of Kayvon Thibodeaux or Trevon Walker or really even Jermaine Johnson, but I just think how refined he is and how he improved all 3 years at Michigan really leads me to believe that he will not be a bust. He will be a quality pro at the very worst for the next decade.
Josh, do you have a buyer beware for an edge player that you would be on the lookout for? I think Traps had listed Trayvon Walker, but we already talked about him.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's your answer too. I mean, certainly he's a riskier, or in theory, a riskier prospect than Hutchinson.
Yeah, at one point I may have said Jermaine Johnson, the second from Florida State. I'm still not as high on him as other people, but I would say that he was more of a slow burn for me. I grew to like him a lot more as I watched him more. Trayvon Walker, like Trap said, is kind of the one that carries a lot more risk because he's going to be asked to do something at the next level that he really hasn't shown to this point. So you can get excited about the size and the athletic traits, but we really don't know what the future is going to hold for him. Now, as I've said, in the past, I don't see a number 1 overall caliber prospect in this draft class. So, when you're looking to possibly take a guy that could reach that level of play, I think Walker is one of the few that has a chance to possibly get there if he does reach this unworldly potential that he has.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. Like the idea of taking, and then actually really quickly on just before we move on from edge, like Kayvon Thibodeaux, as I mentioned, the steam is picking up for number 2. I think there's a pretty good chance we could see 3 edge players go off in order to start this draft off. And then you have the Jets at 4, and they have to decide, do we take one of these offensive linemen or do we go with Sauce Gardner, who I certainly think they would be interested in and don't think they'll get him at 10. The fascinating thing, I think, is that it's sort of a hot take, but like the 2 most important or the 2 most influential players on the entire draft are Mekhi Becton and Laramie Tunsil, because they're going to impact what the Jets and the Texans do at 3 and 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the Jets, they could really sell their whole organization, their fan base, the media on, hey, we're going to pick Evan Neal here at 4 because we're not in love with Mekhi Becton. Laramie Tunsil's still good, and the Texans, obviously said that they're not going to trade him. I think he's a better player, which would lend me to believe that they're probably at 3, like you mentioned, just go 1, 2, 3. The best edge rusher that's available, if that is even Aiden Hutchinson, which seems crazy like 2 weeks ago. If that's the case, I think the Texans, to have that other pick that they got in the Deshaun Watson trade at 13 from the Browns, they could pick Kayvon Thibodeaux at 3 and then, pick Derek Stingley at 13 or just go best player available there. But yeah, I do think there's a pretty good chance that we'll see edge, and then edge for the first 3 selections.
And sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say grab a shovel, Will, because you could dig a little deeper there. James Bradbury, Baker Mayfield, 2 other guys that kind of hold the cards for draft night. If you
feel free to steal that. Feel free to steal that. Like non-draft players who are the most, I'm obviously not going to write it. I mean,
it's a good idea. I mean, if Baker is traded to Carolina or Seattle, then you're probably taking them out of the quarterback market.
100%.
If the Giants trade James Bradbury, then it becomes infinitely more likely that they're to take Derek Stingley Jr. or Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati in the top 10.
Agreed. Traps, give me a sleeper edge guy and a small school standout edge guy. We'll just lump those together for sake of purposes.
The sleeper is Tyreke Smith from Ohio State. There was some buzz that he could have been a day 2 pick last year. If you look at his pass rush win rate, it was up there like 20%, which is crazy high. It was higher than a lot of the other top edge rushers that we've been talking about. And then I looked at his pro day, and his measurables are actually pretty close to Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, on the field, he's not as explosive or bendy, but I think he uses his hands really well. We know those Ohio State defensive ends, they're coached so well, and they know how to use their hands. They have all the pass rushing moves in the arsenal. Tyreke Smith really is getting like zero buzz whatsoever, even like later. I think 2nd or 3rd round, I would be fine with the team picking him. And maybe he's not going to set the edge and be your 700 snap per season defensive end, but just as a pass rushing specialist, I think he gives you a lot right out of the gate. And then small school guy, Dominique Robinson from Miami of Ohio. I believe he was a former wide receiver or tight end. Josh is like really good with those positional switches to like know all of them because there's so many in today's college game. Played on the offensive side, super long, had an over 40-inch vertical at the Miami of Ohio Pro Day, tested really well at the combine. Just needs to get a little bit stronger. He's like 6'4", only 245 pounds. Needs to get bigger and stronger to deal with the power that he's going to see at the next level. But I really like his bendiness and his explosiveness. That's really the foundational traits that you want to have at edge rusher. So anywhere maybe as high as the 3rd or the 4th round, I would be fine. Early day 3 if a team picked Dominique Robinson as that developmental edge rusher.